Russian President Vladimir Putin just spoke in Moscow after meeting with his close ally, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Putin says Russia is in favor of a 30-day ceasefire with Ukraine, but wants a long-term deal and his own security guarantees. Putin also reiterated that Russian troops have driven the Ukrainian army out of the biggest town in Kursk, though Ukraine has yet to confirm that. Foreign correspondent Marcus Moore joins me with that. Marcus, what's the latest on these remarks from Putin, and what more are you learning about his meeting with Lukashenko?
Well, this is the first time we've heard from Vladimir Putin on this 30-day ceasefire that the Ukrainians and the U.S. have agreed to. You just mentioned the Russian leader during a news conference, a joint news conference with Alexander Lukashenko, saying that he would support a ceasefire, but he said that there are nuances and that a 30-day ceasefire with Ukraine would come with questions about how that time period is used. He said that would Ukraine be using that time to regroup and to prepare for future military action. He referenced the latest situation on the ground in Kursk, where we know that the Russians have been able to push Ukraine back. Vladimir Putin saying that Ukrainian troops there are groups of them who have been surrounded. So then he said that if there is a ceasefire, what happens with those troops? Do they let them leave? He said after they've committed crimes. He said that there's a lot that has to be talked about, but overall, he tried to convey the message that he's open to a ceasefire. And Diane, just very quickly in terms of what this meeting was about, this news conference with Alexander Lukashenko and Vladimir Putin, really what they're trying to do is twofold. Visually, show that Belarus and Russia are partners. Not only are they neighbors, but they're allies and friends. And they talked about the sanctions that have been put in place on both countries that they said have been in an effort to isolate Belarus and Russia, but they claim that it has had the opposite effect and that they are in this together, Diane.
Now, Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is in Moscow for talks with Putin. So where do those negotiations stand right now?
So this news conference wrapped up today, and in terms of what we know, we understand that Steve Witkoff is expected to meet with Vladimir Putin today in Russia, and this is really an effort on the part of the U.S. to try to convince Vladimir Putin to sign on to the ceasefire. But really, when you look at the situation on the ground, Russia will be looking at this potential ceasefire agreement to be something that they can get something from, get an advantage out of. But right now, they have Ukraine on the back foot in the Kursk region and would be less likely to sign any type of ceasefire agreement that's not beneficial to Russia in some way.
Meanwhile, Marcus, Russia is claiming that it's recaptured this town in the Kursk region. How significant is that? And could that impact these ceasefire talks?
Well, it's significant in that it represents really the latest development on the battlefield. If you recall, the Kursk region is a part of Russia where the Ukrainians launched that surprise offensive back in August. This was a move on the part of Ukraine to try to have some bit of leverage in any potential negotiations. So the fact that Russia has been able to gain ground there and seems to have been able to take control, that is significant in terms of the overall fight, Diane, there in Ukraine.